This is Mark Mullinax, and I welcome you back to this class on Taoism, Power for the Peaceful. Today, verse 27, Wu-Wei, the Great Reverser.
When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. When you listen to the ground and you put your roots down, you can hear what she says if you're listening. The sweet sound of the river as she moves over the stones. The same song that the blood in your body sings as it weaves around your bones. When you're listening, are you listening?
The human ordinarily is a robot. We live apparently awake, but not really. We walk, we talk, we act, but it is all as if in sleep, not conscious of what we do, not conscious of what we say, not conscious of all that surrounds us. We move surrounded in a dark cloud of unawareness. According to Gautama the Buddha, this is the original sin, to live unconsciously, to act out of unconsciousness. In fact, the word sin comes from a root which means forgetfulness. Sin simply means that we are not conscious, aware, alert, that we don't have any inner light to guide us. Rajneesh.
I'm glad you're here today. Thank you for stopping by. Today's quote reader is our artist, Audrey Davis. You may remember her voice from verse 1. When we recorded that first verse earlier, I did not have my good microphone turned on, so I promised her another appearance. We met in Asheville's Riverside Cemetery to record, about 25 feet away from Thomas Wolfe's grave, on a hot August noon. She will later pose a question on death and Taoism. But here's Audrey again, reading our verse for today.
Verse 27, Excellence 101. True pilgrims leave no trace of their passage. Truth speakers leave nothing unanswered. The truest planners calculate without the baggage of preconceptions. The best door shuts securely without a lock. The best binder needs no knot for his rope to fasten. Likewise, sages excel in saving others. They abandon no one. Skilled in goodness, they care for all things by just following their inner light. Therefore, the skillful search out of the unskilled anywhere, and the unskilled find the skillful everywhere. Why, and how, does respect go both ways, so the unskilled and skillful not together? This is the riddle at the core.
Tao is one of many ancient wisdom sources for human beings that have emerged in human history. Other notable wisdom traditions include those from native peoples, Greeks, India, and Hebrew, just to name a few, but each serves as a beacon illuminating the depths of human existence and offering a guidance for harmonious living. While the spiritualities just named do have some analogs of Wu-Wei, defined as the not doing of some things, as well as the wise doing of other things, Wu-Wei is a rarely heard of or rarely practiced spiritual state in our day. In our world, the doing of something becomes the definition of an era, like the space race, the age of reason, the age of revolutions, the industrial age, the age of exploration, which wasn't very nice or good to many native peoples. Can you imagine a Taoist age called the age of reversing, or the age of underachieving? Not that exciting maybe, but my point is that our human activities do not celebrate non-doing, or Wu-Wei. Taoism's Wu-Wei is an almost counterintuitive or counter-wisdom, a reminder not to do things in self-serving ways. With Wu-Wei as one's operating spiritual system, one does service, serving out justice, helping, blessing, healing, taking care of, teaching, and tending. Today's Tao Te Ching verse 27, which I've entitled Excellence 101, is a succinct masterpiece that weaves the profound truths about Wu-Wei into human affairs, behaviors, leadership, the interconnectedness of all things, but with an ironic or playful, smiling invitation, not just to think differently, not just to rethink, but do this jujitsu-styled reverse think. This is a verse that reverses us. I hope you catch my play on words. So let me offer a few reversals obvious in Taoism. Reversal number 1. Taoism has no judgmental deity to please. Instead, Taoism offers a reversed view that something originally good and spontaneous is at our core. If there is a deity, we are already pleasing that deity. We are its delight. If I may anthropomorphize Tao, there's nothing one can do to piss off Tao. Tao will just wait for you to remember who you are. Your inherent, perfected goodness is deeper than thought, wider than sky, and as instinctual as a sex drive. You don't have to think about how to act. You just do the necessary good that flows from within. This is quite the reversal of some spiritualities that seek outwardly to please a deity out of some sense of duty or spiritual achievement. Reverse that. Reversal number 2. Underachievement is an overlooked virtue. Those drives to overachieve and attempt to satisfy a never-contented ego get us into the most trouble. Schools, militaries, governments, banks, corporations, religions, clocks, political parties, they all do their work way too well, making their populations feel off balance until we think like they do, and we drink whatever energy drinks and potions they say we need to imbibe. It's not that churches, militaries, and whatnots don't work. The crazy thing is that they do. Those powers are ridiculously efficient at changing those who submit to them, making those who join their groupthink more predictable, more pliable, more governable, more militarized, more money-hungry, more restricted, more well-behaved, and more afraid. Wanting us to care about these powers' approval, we become their spokespeople. Tao's Wu-Wei offers the gift of underachievement to replace these destructive, overachieving systems that turn us into little robots, afraid to remember who we really are. If our only choices are underachievement and overachievement, well, overachievement is by far the greater threat to our world. Reversal number 3. And finally, to love this world without reason is a sacred act. The so-called powers that be I mentioned above in reversal number 2, schools, military, and the like, they love to divide the world into dualistic opposites. Body opposes soul, female opposes male, like opposes dislike. We must overcome them. Good needs to overcome every evil in some masculine, heroic way, in ways very much like Hollywood puts on repeat mode in its products. These powers construct these artificial hierarchies, which divide people into artificial things like races, genders, nations, and other crazy groupings. Artificial to the last. Fictions, every one. For they each and all teach that you love only those like you. You're given reasons to be loyal to some and reasons to hate the rest. And where have all these unnatural, dualistic efforts gotten us? We're divided, at each other's throats, suspicious, fearful, and suffering. Taoism, like many spiritual traditions I've mentioned already, offers an alternative. Think in reverse. Love, respect, appreciate each and all in this world without some reason, except this important condition to consider. There's no division in Taoism. No separation of things alive with things not alive. Taoism does not discriminate between people with this belief or people with that belief. You just love because you sense the other is just like you, which is a total reversing of what passes for our utilitarian-based love today. More unites us than could ever separate us. You love because the world just don't make sense if you don't. And love like this, without some utilitarian payback reason, is a sacred, virtuous, radical, revolutionary act. It disarms the armed, unites the separated, heals the broken, breaks open the fearful to their potential, empowers the powerless, and so much more. These three reversals are the power of Tao in action, but without achievement or achievement's fanfares. They are returns to our original peace, harmony, and justice.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
Now let's dig into some of this verse's reversal phrases, reversing's that point to the quiet power of Wu-Wei. First, the art of effortless excellence. A quote from the verse, "True pilgrims leave no trace of their passage." This verse's opening line paints a vivid picture of a virtuous traveler who moves through life with humility and grace, leaving behind no ego-driven trail marks, no graffiti scrawls of "I was here." Just as a pilgrim's footprints are erased by the wind, a true leader's actions are guided by emptying of self, rather than gathering all those souvenirs of personal glory.
Those who treasure the way fit in without making a show and stay forever hidden. Hence, they don't leave any tracks. Wang Zhen.
The concept of effortless action, or Wu-Wei, is at play here, where one achieves excellence not through force, but by aligning with the natural flow of things. So while Wu-Wei actually translates as not doing, let's expand that sense to doing that is aligned with the natural flow of things. The skilled pilgrim or traveler is not obsessed with goals like reaching a particular destination, but instead focuses on the journey itself. The journey is the only goal. Living without fixations on specific goals, one is freed up within, freed up for others, and one frees up others. As we shall see, healing is perhaps a main goal of Wu-Wei's practices. Next, the art of truth. Truth speakers leave nothing unanswered, the verse says. A person with Tao speaks only necessary truth with those who have been fed lies and the poppy anesthetics of forgetfulness. In a world dominated by noise and constant chatter, the verse reminds us of the value of silence and deliberate speech. As one folk wisdom puts it, speak only when you can improve the silence. Truth speakers do not mince words or seek faults in others, nor do they say more than is necessary. Again, that's Wu-Wei. Because often what is needed in an unjust situation is just the simple truth. Just the simple, uninflated truth. Truth liberates, while lies ensnare and fool and leaves its hearers unanswered by the truths everyone deserves. Next, the sage's compassionate excellence. The verse line here is, "Likewise, sages excel in saving others. They abandon no one." In this line, the focus turns to the enlightened individuals, the sages who embody the highest forms of excellence through their compassion and care for all beings. These sages are not mere teachers, but exemplars of goodness who extend their support to those in need without discrimination. They give and give without keeping any account. This mirrors the Taoist belief in the interconnectedness of all life, and how when you give, you're actually receiving as well. And by the way, anyone can become a sage. Next, embracing the unseen threads of excellence. The verse line here is, "The skillful search out the unskilled anywhere and the unskilled find the skillful everywhere. This seemingly paradoxical statement speaks to the inherent balance and unity within Tao. The skillful seek to share their knowledge and guidance, while the unskilled recognize the wisdom in others and aspire to learn. When the teacher is ready, the student appears. And the reverse is also true. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. Two movements of Wu-Wei simultaneously. And sometimes skillful and unskillful reverses places. This very morning, I taught a mindfulness class at the Taoist Tradition School of Chinese Medicine. There was so much skill in every student. I was truly humbled, schooled would be the correct word, by the ranges of experience and insight of those 25 future doctors. Most of my energy was spent getting out of my own way so that I could really listen to these wise ones. Our dynamic interplay created a rarely achieved classroom energy where individuals from diverse backgrounds and abilities all contributed to a collective excellence. The notion of respect going both ways was clearly in play. But it is a hard-won respect where the skillful were taught and taught themselves. And the unskilled found their voices too. Next, harmony and intuition. The imagery of the truest planners calculate without the baggage of preconceptions highlights the Taoist belief in the inherent harmony of the universe. Counting and calculating imply some need to measure or control, whereas Tao teaches us to trust in the natural flow of things, an intuitive trust that seeks to understand what is, without prior prejudice of preconceived notions. Next is non-resistance and paradox. The best door shuts securely without a lock, and the best binder needs no knot for his rope to fasten. These present paradoxical statements that mirror the Tao's emphasis on non-resistance. Doors and knots can stand in for challenges and obstacles in life by not relying on force or resistance, but rather on reversing them. We don't create new problems. And this aligns with the Taoist notion that true strength comes from yielding and adapting rather than exerting force. Next, practicing these Wu-Wei virtues, the master is not burdened by extra baggage, whether that baggage is material, spiritual, or otherwise. She is available to all. Nothing in her is tripped or triggered by what happens because her Wu-Wei practices reduce her susceptibility to being so triggered. Additionally, Wu-Wei means she is a healed healer. Sages, like all of us, have wounds psychic, bodily, and otherwise. I believe that a person who takes Wu-Wei seriously, no matter their pasts or histories, are better able to be healed themselves and then become healers themselves. This is the wounded healer effect. And she can, by being open to all, participate in the healing of all. What a practice! The sage brings into alignment their confidence in Tao and the practice of Tao to the wounded. I can think of no better recipe for practicing peace.
We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Will Durant's interpretation of Aristotle's truth.
When you're listening, are you listening? When you're listening, are you listening?
Next, this verse calls such healing of wounds the embracing or the embodying or the following of light, which is just a tad bit different than following Tao. Lao Tzu reaches back into Chinese spiritual history to bring out a wise saying, abandoning no one, the sage takes care of all. The sage's hands are healer's hands. This following the light could be the very practice of healing, exactly what is broken in people. Healing is one way to practice Tao. I repeat, healing is one way to practice Wu-Wei.
Books suggest the inner light and the method of bringing that out, but we can only understand them when we have earned the knowledge ourselves. When the inner light has flashed for you, let the books go, and look only within. You have in you all and 1,000 times more that is in all books. Swami Vivekananda.
As the skillful sage searches out the unskilled anywhere, and the unskilled find the skillful everywhere, then why and how does respect go both ways so that the unskilled and the skillful not together? This closing question challenges us to delve deeper into the heart of this verse's wisdom. It invites us to ponder the natural ties between practicing true excellence and knowing interconnectedness. The riddle encapsulates a central theme of the verse, the boundless potential for growth and collaboration when a community of individuals recognize themselves in each other and the value that each one brings. In a classroom, everyone is both teacher and taught. No exceptions. In a healing room, the healer heals even as he is healed. As the Killers sing it,
I don't shine if you don't shine. The Killers read my mind.
Verse 28 explores the myriad ways to practice Wu-Wei. When Wu-Wei is one's worldview a worldview of reversing, you operate by a different modality, different energy, different timetable than folks or cultures who have forgotten Tao. Wu-Wei is so rare, but so important in our day of overachieving, leaving behind wounded people and wounded nature. The sage reverses the wounds, and in so doing she heals what has been wounded, connects with what has been separated, and smooths what has been made rough. Reversing, stripping down with Wu-Wei, one is just operating, as this verse reminds us, by one's inner light. This verse has implications for modern life. Verse 27 holds great relevance in our modern world. In our age marked by constant striving, information overload, overachieving, and divisiveness, this verse encourages us to simplify, communicate mindfully, and harmonize. Why? Maybe one simple reason, so we can each or collectively participate in the healing that our age needs. This is reversing. Conclusion then. Tao Te Ching's verse 27 teaches the basics of excellence through what most worldviews today consider underachievement. If I may be so bold, Taoism understands human nature better than most schools, militaries, corporations, banks, and whatnot. Seen in this grand reversal, we now have an overflowing cornucopia of insights into a superior worldview that truly understands what we already are, not just objects to be corrected or criticized. Leadership is not some guy doing his standalone, stand-apart, superior-sounding pretensions shtick. And unity is not some divide and conquer worldview to colonize everyone into one way of thinking. We are called to be a true community of intermingling parts. Through its evocative language, verse 27 guides us to reverse things, to embrace humility, communicate truthfully, lead compassionately, and see unity and inherent connections instead of artificial separations. This verse has resonated across the centuries, across cultures, across generations. See it as a first primer or guide to achieving excellence by aligning with Tao's wisdom of reversal. And now it's question time. Audrey asks,
As we sit now in a place of humans that have passed on here in Riverside Cemetery, how does Tao approach the inevitability of death? How can we be more at peace with this universal truth?
Thank you, Audrey. Death in Taoism is nothing like the avoidance of death culture we live in here. Here in this very cemetery, we sequester the dead to places not often visited. Visiting a cemetery can lead to the uncomfortable truth, one made uncomfortable by our culture, that death should not be spoken about, celebrated, or thought much about. So what happens in Taoism? In popular Taoism, One can practice efforts to extend one's life as long as possible. These are considered purifying rituals. For many, this means breathing exercises or considering all your food as a kind of medicine that will either prolong or shorten life. Meditation, physical exercises, and certain sexual practices that I will not go into here, but you can certainly find these practices on the internet. For other Taoists, for those who want to go further, they approach death as a practice life. Since their energy is never finally extinguished, but only transformed, they see their death as a kind of liberation to be more able to be aligned with Tao. Some sages have visions of their souls transmigrating through lots of wondrous heavenly realms. Here's one inscription on the funeral altar of the, quote, transcendent Lady Wu-Wei of the Jin dynasty, the Lady of the Southern Peak, primal worthy of the purple void, concurrently supreme true mistress of destiny. I did not make up that title. The inscription reads in part, she divested herself of her form in the shape of a divine sword. She assumed the steering of the tempest wheels. In haste, she ascended the platform of the heaven of upper clarity to the brilliant odes of the yellow court. Under white sun, she rose into the dawn. She descended to the royal mother. She transmitted laws. Spiritual mediums became her neighbors. Her pall of gauze was left empty. In another voice, the inscription writer concludes this: how could I express this lady's mystic virtue? By inscribing her exploits in these halcyon blue serpentine words, to pass them down to generations to come, inexhaustible variety without end. And all I say is, wow. The idea here is that one's energy as an embodied sage transfers and transmutes into all kinds of varieties of focused spiritual energies, which, Audrey, can give one peace in your death. Here's another description of a soul's journey in the void after one dies. It's a Taoist poem entitled Cantos on Pacing the Void, and I'm reading from Canto number 8. Quote, in this high clarity after one's death, there is neither waste nor dissipation. The beings I meet generate fluorescent light. For the ultimate music, neither sirens nor songs, tones of jade tinkle spontaneously. I may ascend the platform of light and truth, which is the source of all celestial music, and feast in the hall of plumed phosphors. Obscure cumuli knot into treasure clouds. In thin flurries they dispense numinous aromas. As a sky person, truly my time and space are unbounded. My joy is grand, impossible to be measured. So notice the transcendence of this realm into all kinds of celestial spaces where one's soul is only enlarged and which experiences things untold and too marvelous to tell. This energy you have in the afterlife impacts others still alive as well as nature, so one's energy is wisely, and abundantly distributed among all the living. It seems that the Taoist sage never retires from healing, helping, and reconnecting others with Tao. I think that if one dies to serve more and serve better, that's a great way to approach one's death. Thank you, Audrey. Appreciate the time with you. This podcast is an original labor of love designed, written, and co-produced by many whose central idea is that Tao Te Ching text and Taoist practices are good news for today. Tao still speaks. Thank you, Audrey Davis, for your wonderful voice, your question, and for your artwork. Molly Hartwell sang. Fortress Press still holds the copyright for any use of my Tao Te Ching translation, and without you, where would we be? Thank you for your attendance in this class on Taoism.
May your days begin in peace and become laboratories of hope.
When you're listening, are you listening?